greetings for skies of couple color as a brinded cow, for rose mounds all in stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire cold chestnut falls, finches wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow and plough, and all trades their gear and tackle and trend.
Everything flows. This is the insight that Heraclitus arrived at when contemplating meaning and existence. The mountain that stands in relief against the changing sky, though appearing immutable, is changing on an incomprehensible timescale. To say it is unchanging is a miscomprehension of flow. It is the tempo of flow that engages our senses. It has been said that the movement of atoms and the cosmos are more akin to the patterns of music than random disorder. Music is the most presentative of arts because the world is made of patterns, and music describes how these patterns could be arranged. And so music seeks to present the synchronous possibilities of the cosmos. The 19th century poet Gerard Manley Hopkins plays with musical patterns in language to make profound observations. In his poem The Windhover, his attention is arrested by a hawk in flight who skillfully masters the wind. He marvels ecstatically at nature and the seeming perfection of the bird, but what manifests most clearly in this poem is the transient aspect of what he observes. Hopkins scholar Paul Mariani says of the moment that Hopkins turned his face to the sky to observe the hawk balanced on the wind. Bran Maneffa, the crow of Maneffa, he has taken to styling himself with his collar and ankle-length black soutane, its free-hanging pieces at shoulder level modelled after the gowns of the Oxford dons. Crow he is, and neither skylark nor thrush nor one of those high-flying hawks he can see circling in the wind currents above him, mastering the big wind so effortlessly as he treads the swirled grass beneath his feet. The Inscape, the achieve of, the mastery of unself-conscious nature, doing what it does so gracefully. I caught this morning's minion, kingdom of daylight's dauphin, dappled dawn-drawn falcon. He begins breathlessly taking in the whole inscape of the small hawk above him. In his riding, of the rolling level underneath him steady air and striding, high there, how he rung upon the rein of a wimpling wing in his ecstasy, then off forth on swing. As a skate's heel sweeps smooth on a bow bend, the hurl and gliding, rebuffed the big wind, my heart in hiding stirred for a bird, the achieve of, the mastery of the thing. What Hopkins observes in this moment is both being and becoming, and the becoming is the thing of greater marvel. It is that becoming, or instantiation at that moment, that he captures with striking patterns of language. Becoming is the unfolding revelation of the pattern of being, and this is the essence of music also. Music instantiates pattern over a finite timescale. It becomes and passes, and though it can be performed again, or notated or described, it is in becoming that it fulfills its mystery, a resonation with the pattern of being. In The Windhover, Hopkins contemplates the transcendent. Through a narrative of a bird in flight, he looks at the existential question. It's a reflection on the ecstasy of life in search of a transcendent truth. The falcon masters the unseen forces of the wind, and this is an intimation of a greater pattern of truth. The ecstatic appreciation of the bird who navigates the currents with such assurance testifies to truth and fate, though esoteric it's no sophistic sleight. And then there's truth in the buckling of the bird beneath the wind. As buffeted he finds a resurgent and resplendent strength. Mariani interprets Hopkins, 1,000,000,000 times told lovelier than anything that had come before in Christ's time on earth. And dangerous too, for it would draw untold others to try and emulate a reality which flew directly in the face of the world's ancient haggard lies that pass for wisdom. The fire that breaks from thee then, he thinks, the fire that will fire him to act. In Pie Beauty, Hopkins observes that the seemingly imperfect, something that is variegated or even blemished, is part of God's pattern. The poem is an observation of an intense patterning in nature and how the patterning paradoxically speaks to an overall unity. He celebrates these things that are variegated and unusual in nature because that speaks of the fineness of creation. We can extract from this an interesting philosophy, that the vagaries of life, chance things which lead to uncertainty and frailty, and seemingly imperfection, contain their own potential for perfection and beauty. There is empathy between these two pieces. They both express elation at witnessing God's plan manifest, but a different kind of veneration. In Pied Beauty, the poet marvels at the finesse of God's work and emphasizes the mysterious purpose of creation. Who knows why? The Windhover has tangible majesty in the bird's mastering of the ephemeral currents of the wind. This signifies faith and trust, an assurance for Hopkins that the search for God is a search for truth. So Hopkins is making a case for faith and reason. Another conclusion from the comparing of these two poems to the darker sonnets of Hopkins is that for joy to exist, its counter, suffering, must also exist. If God's plan can include suffering, it can also include beauty, ecstatic and intimate. Hopkins' great struggle is to express the cruelty of being, while rejecting nihilism. In both these poems, the poet's self is hardly present. Trust and fate are deep and edifying themes, but the poet's view is always cast outwards. In The Windhover, he exults at the beauty and skill of the bird, which are a minor manifestation of God's beauty and skill. In Pie Beauty, he sees that the imperfections that abound in nature, although they may give rise to trial, are frequently the source of great beauty. Nature was not designed to manifest perfect order, and in the seeming flaws he finds the beauty of being. Stating another observation shared by philosophies throughout history and culture, he is observing that there is no perfect state, that there is a place for all things, and all things are perfect to the Creator. Mariani notes that Hopkins extols the reader to have their eyes open to the wonder of creation in every fine detail of nature. Glory be to God for dappled things. The poem rings out for skies pied as brindled cows, as for the detail of rose mould stippled upon swimming trout. Spots luminous in life and too quickly dimmed when taken from their water world, as Hopkins, that avid fisherman, has seen with his own eyes. These rose moulds chiming with fresh falling chestnuts, revealing their inner rose red, chiming with those fire coals in the closing lines of The Windhover. Mariani continues, the pied beauty of finch's wings, yellow and black and grey and white, and then panning out again to take in the Welsh landscape with its variegated shades of greens and browns and blues, and all trades as well with their gear and tackle and trim, adding to God's variegated abundance. All things opposite and different and unique, all of this fathered forth by a Creator, who contains all perfection in himself, a Creator therefore past all change. To manifest something is the most truthful way of affirming it. The great archetypal pattern is made personal within the individual's own life. The beauty of Hopkins' imagery is that he presents a dynamic picture, which makes a metaphysical present statement. Words are used visually to depict this energy, both in motion and in suspense, where suspense represents control, knowledge, and understanding. The veracity of his words are in the rhythm of his language. They flow, they arrest, they release, just as the bird does. So again, the poetic form is another manifestation of the metaphysical statement. His inscape is within the flow of the words, his words which describe truth, they do not create truth. This is the most important realization of Hopkins' observations. Hopkins makes another connection between spirit and substance. In mythological narrative, the spirit is symbolized as breath, breath being the essence of life, and breath also being an essential of speech, which bridges spirit to the intellect. In Genesis, we have the interesting symbolic representation of this. The breath of God hovered over the water, and then God said, "Let there be light." Light, of course, illuminates and gives the ability to uncover meaning. Breath is essential to the intellect, because the logos, the intellect, cannot exist without breath. And there we have the Windhover, carried on a breath of wind. This is a long-winded way of restating what I have already stated. Hopkins' most powerful statement is this: if language is to mean anything, it must contain truth. It cannot create truth. Truth is not called into being by words. Words must represent truth as it is manifested in being. So what is Hopkins exactly saying with the focus on the minute, this focus on infinitesimally small patterns? Perhaps he's saying the pattern has purpose, that the universe is too big to understand, but it's manifested through fractals of patterns, and that the patterns are manifest even from the tiniest subtle mark up to the most cosmologically magnificent. God's plan in creation is patterned. To understand everything, we must pay attention to what is before us, even in the tiniest, most fragile and most delicate thing. This pattern, which is reflective of the pattern of the entire cosmos, the entire wisdom of creation, is to be seen in the tiny pattern. The flecks of colour, the rose moles on a trout in water, and those flecks, those subtle patterns, is to be seen in a life properly ordered. Hopkins draws out this idea with the ploughman who becomes part of the pattern and shapes the landscape with orderly husbandry. He is living within the pattern, and he is creating the pattern, or he is forming the pattern. The tackle of the plough team represents man's earnest efforts to insert himself into the pattern and emulate God's creative and ordered nature. Man the beast, man and nature, harnessed together, reveal the pattern of creation on another level. The fields are turned to fruitful harvest, and in the beginning this work reveals the pattern is applying complex but minute detail. The turned furrow, ploughed down scion, reveals this pattern in beautiful arrays of colour. And so we have the observation that the pattern of creation is manifested at all levels, and to understand God is to notice this.
This morning's minion, kingdom of daylight, Dorfan, dappled on drunk falcon in his riding of the rolling level underneath him, steady air and striding. High there, howling rung upon the rein of a wimpling wing in his ecstasy, and then off a fortune swing as a skate's heel sweeps smooth on the bow bend, hurl and gliding. Rebuff the big wind, my heart in hiding, stirred for a bird, the achieve on the mastery of the thing. Brute beauty and valour, an act o'er pride plume near bocal, and the fire that breaks from deed in a billion times, to lovelier, more dangerous, oh my chevalier. No wonder of it, sheer plowed makes plough down scion shine, and blue bleak embers, ah, my dear, fall gold themselves and guide